Behind every Hollywood legend was someone who saw their potential before anyone else did. Directors who discovered future stars working as prop hands. Established actors who taught newcomers how to survive the studio system. Comedians who showed the next generation how to command a stage. These weren't always gentle relationships. Some mentors were demanding, even cruel. But they shaped careers, transformed unknowns into icons, and in doing so, changed the history of cinema. John Ford and John Wayne. John Ford met Marion Morrison in 1928 when the young man was a USC student earning money as a prop hand and assistant at Fox Studios. Ford was already a successful director who had made over 60 silent films. Morrison was nobody, a college football player who needed work during summer break. One day on set, Ford asked Morrison about his football career, then challenged him to demonstrate his form. Ford intentionally tripped him, sending Morrison face first into the mud. It was a standard prank Ford played on young crew members. But Morrison didn't take it. He asked for another try, and this time deliberately knocked Ford over, sending the director sprawling into the mud. Ford loved it. The spunk and refusal to be intimidated appealed to him. Ford started giving Morrison small roles as an extra. Within 2 years, Morrison had changed his name to John Wayne, and Ford recommended him to director Raoul Walsh for a lead role in The Big Trail. The film flopped spectacularly, nearly bankrupting Fox Studios. Wayne was relegated to B-Westerns for nearly a decade, churning out low-budget pictures for studios like Republic. He would have stayed there for the rest of his career if Ford hadn't given him a second chance. In 1938, Ford handed Wayne a short story called Stagecoach to Lordsburg and asked him to suggest an actor for the lead. Wayne suggested Lloyd Nolan. Ford exploded, calling Wayne a stupid son of a bitch and telling him he wanted Wayne to play it. Wayne later admitted he'd been hoping Ford wouldn't say Lloyd Nolan. But producer Walter Wanger didn't want Wayne. The studio could book Wayne in a Republic Western for $5. So why pay $200 for him in Stagecoach? Ford insisted. Wayne recalled that everybody told Ford he was committing suicide, risking a third-rate bum like him in a $1 million movie. Stagecoach made Wayne a star in 1939, launching one of cinema's greatest careers. But Ford didn't go easy on him. The director was notorious for picking on actors, especially inexperienced ones. It was his method of provoking good performances. Wayne was no exception. Ford dared you, Wayne said, to do it right, to do it good. You're really sort of on trial all the time. Over the next 30 years, Ford and Wayne made 18 films together. Wayne called Ford Pappy, or Coach. Ford made Wayne godfather to 2 of his sons, Patrick and Ethan. Their relationship was complicated, mixing genuine affection with professional brutality and political disagreements. During filming of They Were Expendable in 1945, Ford's comments became so harsh that Wayne walked off set. But he always came back. The relationship transcended professional collaboration. They sailed the world together on Ford's yacht Mariner, and later on Wayne's yacht, the Wild Goose. When Ford stumbled at an award ceremony in 1962, Wayne deliberately stumbled on the same step to make it look like a planned gag, saving Ford from embarrassment. Ford died on August 31, 1973. Wayne spent Ford's final day with him, and they talked about Ward Bond, their mutual friend who had died in 1960. Wayne believed Ford could have directed another picture right up until his death, but Hollywood had decided he was too old. In 1976, Wayne told Roger Ebert that in Hollywood these days, they don't stand behind a fella. They'd rather make a goddamned legend out of him and be done with him. Wayne died in 1979, 6 years after losing the mentor who had discovered him, fired him, rescued him, tormented him, and ultimately loved him like a son. Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett. Lucille Ball saw Carol Burnett perform on The Gary Moore Show in the late 1950s and immediately recognized something special. Ball reached out and invited Burnett to lunch. Burnett was terrified. Lucy was television royalty, a woman who had fought her way to the top. Burnett was nobody, a struggling performer who couldn't afford decent clothes. But Ball treated her as an equal. She didn't offer patronizing advice. She talked to Burnett as a fellow comedian. The friendship that developed was based on mutual respect. Ball became Burnett's mentor, offering advice on everything from contract negotiations to handling difficult producers. When Burnett was developing the Carol Burnett Show, Ball was one of the first people she consulted. Ball taught Burnett to demand creative control and fair pay, lessons Ball had learned the hard way. But the relationship went both ways. Burnett made Ball laugh at a time when Ball's life was falling apart. Ball's marriage to Desi Arnaz had ended bitterly, and she was lonely and hurt. Burnett's humor and genuine kindness helped Ball heal. They would talk for hours on the phone, gossiping and supporting each other. In later years, when Ball's career slowed down, Burnett made sure to include her in specials and award shows. When Ball died in 1989, Burnett delivered a eulogy that captured their friendship perfectly. She talked about Ball's generosity, her toughness, and her loyalty. She cried openly. Lucy had taught her that being vulnerable wasn't weakness. The mentor had become the friend, and the friend had become family. Mae West and Cary Grant. In 1933, Mae West spotted a young actor at Paramount and asked about him. The response was, "Oh, that's Cary Grant. He's making Madame Butterfly with Sylvia Sidney." West retorted, "I don't care if he's making Little Nell. If he can talk, I'll take him." West handpicked Grant for She Done Him Wrong, her second film and first starring role. Grant had already made several films, including Blonde Venus with Marlene Dietrich the year before. West would later claim she discovered Grant, saying that until her film, he'd only made some tests with starlets. This annoyed Grant for the rest of his life because it simply wasn't true. But what West did do was give Grant major exposure in a wildly successful film. She Done Him Wrong was a massive hit and made Grant visible in a way his previous work hadn't. Playing opposite West, Grant developed techniques he would use throughout his career. He learned to let women make the first move, to stay still rather than pursue, to be the elusive object of desire. West's oversized sexual presence could have made Grant look weak or emasculated, but instead he projected a surprising masculinity through restraint. He learned that less could be more. West and Grant made one more film together, I'm No Angel, released the same year. It was another hit with West as the main attraction and Grant as supporting player. But audiences were noticing him. By 1937, Grant had become a major star, landing lead roles in screwball comedies that made him one of Hollywood's biggest names. Grant never fully credited West for his success, but she had given him a crucial platform and, whether she intended to or not, taught him valuable lessons about screen presence and how to hold his own opposite powerful leading ladies. West remained proud of spotting Grant's potential, even if she exaggerated her role in his discovery. Grant remained annoyed by her claims, but both benefited from their brief collaboration. Alfred Hitchcock, Grace Kelly, and Tippi Hedren. Alfred Hitchcock had a pattern with his leading ladies. He found them, shaped them, obsessed over them, and eventually destroyed the relationships. Grace Kelly and Tippi Hedren represent two very different outcomes of Hitchcock's mentorship. Hitchcock cast Kelly in Dial M for Murder in 1954, her first major role. She was 24, beautiful, and untested. Hitchcock molded her into his ideal blonde, elegant and icy on the surface, but with passion underneath. They made Rear Window and To Catch a Thief together, and Kelly became a star. But she quit acting in 1956 to marry Prince Rainier of Monaco, leaving Hitchcock bereft of his perfect muse. 5 years later, Hitchcock spotted Tippi Hedren in a television commercial. He signed her to a personal contract and spent months grooming her for the birds. Hitchcock controlled every aspect of Hedren's look, her wardrobe, her hair, her mannerisms. He was patient and supportive during filming, helping her develop as an actress. The birds made Hedren a star. But during their second film together, Marnie, Hitchcock's behavior changed. According to Hedren, he became obsessive and controlling. She later claimed he made unwanted sexual advances, and when she rejected him, he sabotaged her career, refusing to release her from her contract, but also refusing to let her work for other directors. The mentorship that had seemed so promising curdled into something dark. Hitchcock's pattern with actresses reveals the complicated power dynamics of old Hollywood. He could make careers, but he could also destroy them. Kelly escaped by marrying a prince. Hedren escaped by waiting out her contract and rebuilding her career on her own terms. Both owed their early success to Hitchcock, but both paid a price for his attention. Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. Frank Sinatra met Sammy Davis Jr. in the late 1940s when Davis was performing as part of the Will Maston Trio. Sinatra recognized Davis's extraordinary talent and took him under his wing. The relationship was complicated by the era's racism. Davis was black and Jewish in an industry and country that discriminated against both. Sinatra, as a major star, had power to open doors that would otherwise stay closed. Sinatra insisted that Davis be allowed to perform in venues that usually excluded black entertainers. When hotels refused to let Davis stay in the same building where he performed, Sinatra threatened to walk away from lucrative contracts. He used his leverage to force integration, at least for Davis. Sinatra also taught Davis how to navigate Hollywood's social landscape. He introduced him to influential people, vouched for his talent, and defended him against racist attacks. When Davis lost his eye in a 1954 car accident, Sinatra visited him in the hospital and helped him through recovery. Davis joined Sinatra's Rat Pack in the late 1950s, performing alongside Sinatra, Dean Martin, Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. The group became legendary for their Las Vegas shows and film appearances. But the relationship wasn't equal. Sinatra's temper was notorious, and he sometimes treated Davis poorly, making racist jokes at his expense, even while defending him against racism from others. Davis tolerated it because Sinatra had done so much for his career. The mentorship was real, but so was the power imbalance. Sinatra died in 1998, Davis in 1990. Despite the complicated dynamics, Davis always credited Sinatra with opening doors that would have remained closed without his intervention. Lionel Barrymore's influence. Lionel Barrymore came from one of America's great theatrical families and became one of MGM's most respected character actors. By the time talkies arrived, Barrymore was in his 50s and transitioning from leading man to character roles. He became known for mentoring young actors at MGM, taking them aside and teaching them technique. Barrymore directed several films in the early 30s, including one of Clark Gable's early pictures. Though Barrymore didn't discover Gable, he helped refine his craft. Barrymore was patient with inexperienced actors and generous with advice. He believed in sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. By the late 30s, Barrymore was confined to a wheelchair due to arthritis and injuries, but he continued acting and mentoring. Young actors sought him out for advice on everything from line readings to career management. His influence at MGM was enormous. Studio heads respected him, and his endorsement could help a young actor's career. Barrymore died in 1954, having spent over 50 years in film and theater. Dozens of actors credited him with helping their careers, though his mentorship was quieter and less documented than some others. Spencer Tracy and Elizabeth Taylor. Spencer Tracy and Elizabeth Taylor worked together on Father of the Bride in 1950 and Father's Little Dividend in 1951. Taylor was 18 when they first met, already a star, but still learning her craft. Tracy took a paternal interest in her, offering guidance on acting technique. Tracy taught Taylor about restraint and economy in performance. He showed her how to convey emotion without overacting, how to listen as well as speak, how to trust the camera to capture subtle moments. Taylor later said Tracy was the finest actor she ever worked with, and that watching him taught her more than years of formal training could have. The mentorship extended beyond technique. Tracy advised Taylor on dealing with studio politics and maintaining dignity in an industry that often treated actresses as disposable commodities. Taylor's career flourished over the decades, and she credited Tracy with teaching her that acting was a craft that required constant work and humility. When Tracy died in 1967, Taylor mourned the loss of a mentor who had treated her with respect when she was just a teenager learning her craft. Bob Hope and young comedians. Bob Hope had a reputation for generosity toward up-and-coming comedians. Throughout his career, he gave young performers their first big breaks, featuring them on his television specials and radio shows. Hope mentored dozens of comedians, offering advice on timing, material, and how to work an audience. He taught them practical skills like how to handle hecklers and how to adjust material for different venues. Many comedians who went on to major careers got their start on Hope's shows. He had an eye for talent and wasn't threatened by younger performers. Hope believed comedy was better when there were more good comedians working. The more talent there was, the higher audiences' expectations became, and that pushed everyone to improve. Hope's mentorship was less personal than some others, more professional and pragmatic. But it was effective. He helped launch careers and set standards for professionalism in comedy. Marlene Dietrich's guidance. Marlene Dietrich had relationships with numerous younger actresses, both romantic and platonic, and often served as a mentor figure. Dietrich understood the studio system's brutality, particularly toward women. She taught younger actresses how to protect themselves, how to negotiate contracts, and how to maintain control over their images. Dietrich was frank about the realities of being a woman in Hollywood. She didn't sugarcoat the sexism or the double standards, but she also showed by example that it was possible to have a long career on your own terms if you were smart and tough. Her mentorship was informal, offered over dinners and drinks, shared in confidence. Many of the women she helped never publicly acknowledged her role, but privately they credited her with teaching them how to survive. Charlie Chaplin, discovering talent. Charlie Chaplin discovered child actor Jackie Coogan and cast him in The Kid in 1921, making Coogan one of the first child superstars. Chaplin saw something special in the 7-year-old and shaped his performance into something that made audiences weep. Chaplin also worked with and influenced numerous actors and directors throughout his career. He was demanding and perfectionist, but actors who worked with him learned invaluable lessons about physical comedy and emotional truth. Chaplin's influence extended beyond people he directly mentored. His films set standards that inspired generations of filmmakers and performers. James Cagney's mentorship. James Cagney had a surprising reputation for helping younger actors, particularly those from working-class backgrounds like his own. Cagney remembered what it was like to struggle, and he went out of his way to give advice and encouragement to newcomers. One story has Cagney working with a very young Shirley Temple on a film set and being uncharacteristically patient with the child star, offering gentle direction when she struggled with a scene. Whether this story is apocryphal or not, Cagney was known for being generous with his time and knowledge, particularly with actors who reminded him of himself. Young people with talent, but no connections, trying to break into an industry designed to keep them out.